Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we're going to talk about medical marijuana. Does it have a chance to come to our state? And then you better stay in your seats for this one. Revenge porn? I never heard of this until a couple of weeks ago. We have a couple of reporters that are going to talk about medical marijuana, revenge porn, and we'll get into a little education funding. And then how are the folks insuring you reacting and bringing about change to the healthcare coverage that you get? That's an important couple of segments you won't want to miss. And guess what? We'll be back right after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, well, look, welcome back. We're going to talk about a couple of really fascinating subjects we haven't dealt with very much on this program. Joining me is Karen Langley, reporter with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and Robert Swift from Times-Shamrock newspapers. Both of these great reporters cover the Capitol. They're right there on the scene with the important stories. Robert, let's start with you. Medical marijuana, overwhelmingly supported by the voters of this state. I think it's 21, 22 states already have it. What's going on in the Pennsylvania legislature with medical marijuana?
Well, we have bills surfacing, and this new bills. There's been a bill for a couple of sessions, but a new one with Senator Dalen Leach as the main sponsor to legalize this. And the other thing going on in the political arena is one of the candidates for governor on the Democratic side, John Hanger, is making this a major issue.
Right.
Not just a side issue, but a major issue. And one of the things that John Hanger is saying about this is not your father's Pennsylvania anymore, that this state's changing in its attitudes. And of course, this is a state that, founded by the Quakers, where we had laws where you couldn't shop on Sunday until a generation ago.
Or gamble at all, right?
Gambling. So some of these things are falling, that have traditionally been there. But I think this is still, a long ways to go on this.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is Governor Corbett and, his position. You've got the state house, which not arguably, Karen, is, to put it bluntly, more conservative. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, so, I mean, we've seen in a lot of states around the country, there's moves in different ways towards allowing some kind of medical marijuana use for people with certain illnesses. But you're not hearing like a big uprising in the Capitol in support of this. We do have a Republican state senator, Mike Fulmer, who's putting his name on a bill with Senator Leach.
So we got a conservative Republican and a liberal Democrat. I think that, would you all both agree that's, we're being factual about the way, go ahead, we would characterize it.
I mean, so that's certainly an interesting development. But Governor Corbett's office is still saying that he would veto such a bill if it would get to his desk, and the Republican majority leader's office is saying that we shouldn't be expecting a vote on this year. Yeah. So I don't think it's about to sail through.
Yeah, I mean, it does, in the polls that I've done and others have done, I was sort of surprised at the degree of public support. Upwards of 82% of Pennsylvania voters support it. But we put it if prescribed by a doctor. Now, I don't know if that, I don't know what visions people have of, people being able to go almost anywhere and buy pot, use it recreational pot. Now, I mean, if we think medical marijuana is out.
There's a sort of a libertarian streak to the issue, too.
Yeah,
where that could be in whatever segment of the voter electorate that gets,
All right. Yeah. Look, I don't even know how to begin to get into this thing called revenge porn. I've never thought in 17 years of hosting this program 17 years the program's been on the air, we're going to talk about revenge porn. You get the job, you get the task, Karen, of trying to explain this.
So this issue refers to when photographs, nude photographs of people engaged in explicit acts appear on the internet. And this is something where there are some organized websites that seek out and look for these, that in some cases advertise themselves to people who are angry at their exes. This is where the term revenge porn comes from.
I get it.
Although we should note that some victims of this say that they ended up in this situation because their computers were hacked, and they say in some cases that they haven't shared their photographs with anybody. Right. But so this is kind of a developing issue as far as laws go. We have California recently passing a law addressing this issue. Also, last month, a man in California who ran one of these websites was hit with a large number of felony charges. He was alleged to have set up one of these websites and then had victims pay him hundreds of dollars to take them down. So it's a form of extortion in this case.
In other words, yeah.
But so we have a proposal in the State House from a Democratic State Senator, Judy Schwenk, to criminalize, in this case it would be as a misdemeanor, the posting of such photographs online. Although there's an exception if you have permission from the person. This is supposed to be if there's an intent to harass somebody, really.
Yeah, but I mean, Robert, at our age, I mean, we wouldn't have thought about this 25 or 30 years ago.
And there's a sort of a sticky legal issue with this. We do have a sexting law in Pennsylvania of just, when teens, send photos of each other without. Right. And so this bill has a clause about intent to harm, and there's some language added in the Judiciary Committee, which voted for it, but no one talked about the bill in the committee, which is odd. But one of the things they're trying to do is not get these teens who may be sexting photos caught up with this law, where there's actually an malicious intent involved.
Yeah, we're going to run to a break. I have another question about revenge porn, and then we're going to talk about education funding. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation, educating citizens and business leaders about important public policy issues and civic affairs. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by BetterSaferRoads.com. To voice your support for safer highways and less traffic congestion, visit BetterSaferRoads.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back. All right, Karen Langley, where does this stand? I mean, what's the status of it in the legislature?
Sure. So I think that it's worth noting that while the phrase revenge porn sounds a little bit outlandish, this is something that I think does have a chance of getting through. It went through its Senate committee vote with a unanimous vote. All Republicans and Democrats were in support.
You're shaking your head, yeah.
I don't know yet, what the House thinks about it, but I think in the Senate it seems like it could have significant support. And this is really being described as almost an issue of sexual harassment and just harassing.
In fact, it could be, depending on how. Well, here's the definition. Schwenk's proposal defines revenge porn as having, quote, no legitimate purpose and with the intent to harass, annoy, or alarm the person depicted. That's a pretty general description, and I presume the lawyers would have a field day with what it means if you alarm somebody. But at any rate, all right, Robert, let's talk. I want to switch the subject. Every Democratic candidate running for governor is talking about increasing education funding. Governor Corbett, in fact, increased it. Now, we're in a debate about whether he increased it or not. How big an issue is this in the state right now?
I think it's going to be the big issue in the budget because the education funding issue is increasingly getting linked with the pension cost issue. And of this big, structural deficit that the state has, a big chunk of that money is what the state has to pay and increase payments to cover school district, school employee pensions.
Right.
It's part of the spike.
So there's about a $49 billion pension debt to the big pension systems, and the state paying that off. Are you saying
that there has to be in the next budget? They have to pay about $500 million more for school employee pensions.
Okay,
this the state share
more than the current share.
More than the current.
And the revenue is not. The anticipated tax rate was not keeping up. At the same time, you have Corbett and the House Republican lawmakers going on an offensive, saying that we're spending more on education than ever before. Well, they will acknowledge a big chunk of that is pensions, and the question
Pension's
gets,
part of it, I get
you know, our pension payments, what do they have to do with classroom learning?
Right.
And so far, you get various answers. You know, if the state doesn't do it, the locals have to do it. We want to attract good teachers, but there is that issue out there, almost a generational issue, about, I mean, is it education funding or what is it, you know?
I guess, Karen, the big day, February 4, governor's going to make his budget address. They did increase the education budget in this year's budget. I'm talking about money for the schools, but they faced $1 billion loss in stimulus money in Corbett's first year, because Governor Rendell and the legislature used one-time stimulus money. Then they cut by $1 billion. So I guess the budget message the governor delivers on February 4 will give us some inkling. I mean, wouldn't that, I think, as Robert would, go ahead.
I mean, it's always a very significant day in the state capitol. So far, you know, we're not getting a lot of signs of what the governor is going to say. We're being told, you know, some of the answers to our big questions about pensions, et cetera, will be answered either in the lead up to that or on that day. I just, you know, think as Robert noted, we have a large shortfall there, and so I don't think anybody is really expecting there's going to be a big boost in any.
Well, there's also
the
budget secretary has said the state faces, and we'll generalize about it because I don't think anyone knows for sure, $1.2 to a $1.4 billion deficit due to other things, right? You both agree with that?
Due to the pensions, Medicaid?
Pensions, loss of Medicaid funding, right, Karen?
And other issues. Pensions are a big part of it.
So in addition to the pressure on the governor to increase education funding, would you both agree Democrats are making that a big push? Voters say this is a concern they have in the polls that we've done. Would you agree it's going to be?
Yeah, voters face it with property tax hikes, plus, you know, we're paying more for school programs, and teachers have been laid off.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of pressure this budget season, and I think we're going to see that play out.
All right, great update. All right, the Affordable Care Act, how insurance companies are trying to find ways to cover people to deal with various parts of that. We'll take that up in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back. Well, listen, there's a lot of reactions by the folks who cover us, you know, the folks who provide us with insurance coverage to various aspects of the Affordable Care Act, some of them complicated, some of them controversial, but we're here today to talk a little bit about not exactly a new program, but one that's certainly expanded, dealing with private exchanges. I want you to hang in with this because I think this is important and it could ultimately affect you. Joining me to talk about this is Bruce Cannon. He's the Vice President of Employee Benefits at Murray Securus, and Bill Brown, he's the Manager of Digital Distribution at Highmark. Digital distribution, that means it goes over the net? Is that right?
That's correct.
And we won't talk about revenge porn. I know you guys, we were all, but we don't do that. We're talking about serious stuff here. All right, Bill, let's start out with the basics. When we talk about a private exchange in the marketplace, what is it?
What is it? So a private exchange is an alternative for employers to, instead of going to public exchange, they can come to a private exchange. They can define a contribution for their employees, so they can.
Now, let me hold up. By public exchange, you mean by the federal exchange set up to implement the Affordable Care Act or one of the state exchanges.
Correct.
In Pennsylvania, we don't have a state exchange. You have to go to the federal exchange, where you would get a menu of various types of coverage. I think there are 3 big areas you buy, coverage in one of those areas. Have I got that right?
That's correct.
But there's an alternative to that. Go ahead.
Yes, private exchanges are an alternative to that. Private exchanges are run normally by a carrier or run by a software vendor who basically is doing the same thing as a public exchange, but in this case where you're off a public exchange, you're doing a defined contribution instead of where a public exchange gives you a subsidy. A defined contribution is set by your employer, and that's a set bucket of money that an employee can go in and use to select their health care coverage.
All right, now let's pursue that. So now we shift to you because you're dealing with the employers.
Correct.
Who want to use a defined contribution, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Which means they would give their employees a sum of money. Do I got that right?
That is
Explain
correct.
that. And so pretend I'm the employee. I'm the employee and you're talking to me.
Right. Well, what happens at that point is the employer, as Bill had said, comes to a situation where they set a set amount of dollars, usually dependent upon your enrollment, if you're single, if you're husband and wife, parent and child, etc. With that, you now have maybe a menu of 5 medical plans, several dental plans, vision plans, and also can include life and disability. So all 3 of us around the table may make different benefit selections based upon our own customized needs of how we use our health care budget.
And then you would come and say to me as your employee, I'm going to give you X amount of, do I got, you're both shaking?
Yes, that's correct.
Finish my thought.
Yep, so you get X amount of dollars, you get to go out onto this exchange, private exchange, and select your coverage. So you can pick your medical, you can pick a dental, a vision, to the needs of your family.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about how you're expanding that, but I must tell you, in all of the information that we've gotten, and we've been inundated with information about the public exchange. I mean, there's been really very little news about private exchanges. Am I right about that?
Well, I would say that...
Or is it me just in a bubble somewhere?
On a large market, very large, companies like Sears, Darden Restaurants,
sure.
100,000 people have gone on to this. But in the regional area, what I'll say is the companies are looking for a couple different things. They're looking for creativity to find ways, as a result of the health care reform law, to be more creative ways how to control their cost. The focus is moving to the consumer. The consumer is now becoming the point of contact and has to be more engaged.
I got it.
It'll be very important to communicate because it is confusing to people.
So that means, just to bring it home again, so
Yes.
you've got a bunch of options on the private exchange. You come to me, you're the boss, you come to me and say, okay, Madonna, here's a sum of money, here's the exchange, and now I've got decisions to make. Is that correct?
Yes, and usually, Terry, it's used by technology. So the technology situation, and additionally...
And that's where he comes in.
That's where, and from that side, most people learn by 3 different ways. They either learn through a group meeting, that you go out and talk to them. Additionally, they may want to call somebody one-on-one because of have to actually involve the spouse or significant other, or they want face-to-face type of meetings. That's how they learn.
All right, when we come back, I want to ask Bill, okay, we're now at a point where I'm going to come to you and say, okay, what has Highmark done, as an example of what's happening with these private exchanges? You learn something every day. We'll be back.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, Bill. Bruce Cannon and Bill Brown are my guests. We're talking about private exchanges and how this is all working. All right, you're on deck now. We've got to the point where you get online, employer has got the employee settled. This is the money you got. You can go buy insurance. What have you done to make that work?
So we try to make this easy for employees. We wanted to give them an interface that's simple, clean, help them get through the process by using decision support tools. So basically answer a few short questions and they can, it will guide them to a medical product that's suitable for them. Also, not only medical, but we have dental, vision, critical illness, accident, life and disability products on the exchange that once a member goes through selecting a medical plan, they have some leftover monies in their defined contribution. They can go into selecting a dental or vision or any other ancillary plan.
Now, you have all moved into offering this for big companies. Is that because of the nature of the provisions of the Affordable Care Act?
So we initially started in small group space. There was a big concern about these small groups jumping to or dumping their group products to move into a public exchange. So we wanted to have a defensive strategy to help retain those group customers.
Right.
And what we're seeing is that we believe that the target was these small groups, but as the education of private exchanges advances, all group sizes are interested.
That's good. All right, now we're back to you. You're dealing with people. How's the digital world working for them?
Well, it's been surprising. We have implemented this. We were asked with Highmark to be a pilot for them a couple of years ago. And for our first couple groups, we figured there would be a lot of people who would want the face-to-face type of one-on-one. And we're finding over 95% go online, rated excellent, rated understandable, and go through that.
And they don't have any trouble signing up, getting on. We won't go into that.
Right, exactly.
But it works.
It works. It does
good
work.
To hear.
Once they're in, they're in.
Good to hear. All right, now, when they get online and they're trying to buy these products, it's okay, I got the money, I want to go buy some insurance. What is it that they can buy?
So on Highmark's platform, we have options for medical products, dental products, vision, critical illness products, and accident products. I know Bruce and their company, they've added a few other ancillary.
We've added, additionally to the medical, dental, and vision, we added the base life, voluntary life, short and long-term disability, voluntary benefits, and additionally they can choose their health savings account and other products all on one platform to make it a one-stop shop for these individuals. And again, it's been proven to be very successful based upon the feedback we've got to the employees, and we believe this is the wave of the future. This is what's coming. Most of the employers, regardless of Bill had said, in size category, are looking as a result of the impetus of the Healthcare Reform Act to look for ways to control costs and give their employees choice. And that's really what the private exchange really does well.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for coming in, and maybe you'll come back. I mean, I think this is something we ought to keep track of. I mean, there's this huge debate going on, about whether the Affordable Care Act will work or not, whether it's structurally sound. We don't need to get into that, but I think this is important to know that there's the private exchanges out there in addition to the public exchanges, and depending on what the employers do, may make a big difference. Great, good, solid job. This was wonderful. All right, as always, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and stay well.